All right. I want to welcome everybody to the regular, back to regular meeting of our hypnosis discussion group. Um, I There have been some chaos happening in my life recently, and so I had to sort of cancel a couple of regularly scheduled hypnosis discussions, but we'll be back into it. And what I want to talk about today, I know that there are many of you who are familiar with what we're doing, but I want to introduce this topic because there are people who listen to this who want to really be good at hypnosis and do hypnosis and learn it. So this is really for those people who are just starting out, and it's sort of starting on the deep end of the pool. What we're gonna be talking about is how to do impromptu hypnosis. And this is when you meet somebody and you manage to introduce yourself and say, I'm a hypnotist. Would and would you like to experience hypnosis? So this is for those people who haven't done this and want to get this experience. And I will tell you, if you haven't done it before, yes, it's a little intimidating, but it's also, once you have done it, it's like your new favorite drug. You want to do it more and again and again, and it gets better and better. So, and for those people who are hypnotists and who have done impromptu hypnosis, when we're done here, I'm going to ask you to share whatever experiences you have. There are lots of ways to do impromptu hypnosis, and this is just one of them. Now, I have my own way, which I'd be happy to talk about. But this one I came across, and it's pretty solid. It only takes less than 5 minutes to actually get someone into hypnosis. And for those who are learning this, I will have a document that sort of describes it, and you can go through it. I'd recommend what you do is review this video and review the document and then practice it several times on your own. Practice it with someone who will cooperate with you. Maybe practice it with somebody who is also wanting to do impromptu hypnosis. You can go back and forth, but just get familiar with the process. And the first thing I think that's important to point out is, if you've never done impromptu hypnosis before, don't tell anybody that. It is your confidence, it is your sense of authority. It's going to provide them a feeling of comfort. So if this is going to be the first time you've worked with somebody, it doesn't matter if it succeeds or fails. Just act like you've been doing this 1,000 times, and this is just one new person. So the first thing you do in this process is you have to introduce the topic of hypnosis. A couple things that I do is, if I'm in a checkout counter, I'll just hand out my card to somebody and say, hey, I'm a hypnotist. If you know anyone who wants to quit smoking or get over anxiety, it's one of the things I do. So that's one way of doing it. Another way of doing it is, someone would say this, and it's ideally if you say something that's relatively true, but he would say, I just got back from a hypnosis convention in Las Vegas. And that always starts the conversation. So you need to introduce the topic of hypnosis. I've also I have T-shirts on my Mind Control Publishing website. It's not a T-shirt, it's actually a collared shirt. It has hypnotist here, and on the back, big bold letters, it has hypnotist. So it's like you're being really obvious, and hopefully you're not being very corny about it, but it's really obvious you're a hypnotist. So it's just a way of introducing the topic of hypnosis. And once you start to do that, the very first thing you do is you dispel any myths. So if they're interested in the topic, you say, well, the hypnosis is used approved of by the American Medical Association, that about 70% of all MMA fighters have a hypnotist that they have worked with. And about 30% of all professional athletes have worked with a hypnotist. So you're creating a framework where this is reasonable, that it is accepted, and you're letting them know how incredibly effective it is. It's also important to explain how the most intelligent and the most creative people are really the very best hypnotists. And of course, everyone wants to see themselves in one of those categories, intelligent or creative. And so there, it sort of puts them up ready to say, okay, let's see if I can do this. Some of the other myths you need to describe are the fact that you're going to remember everything. Hypnosis, you're not in a coma. You don't have amnesia. One lady I remember working with early in my career expressed to me the sincere fear she had of anesthesia and what she called going under. At that time, early in my career, I didn't clarify the point that you're not under an anesthesia. You're going to be completely aware of what's happening. And hang on one second, see if we've got anyone else waiting. Okay, we're good. So once you've dispelled those fears and you're presenting yourself as an authority, you would ask them, and this is how the quote goes, are you ready to fully go into hypnosis? Now, what I would do after asking that question is I would pull back. I would give them a restraint. I would say, but before we do, I don't want to just make you have this feeling. I want to give you something. So this could be a greater sense of discipline. It could be removing procrastination. It could be eating better or a sense of motivation or getting over anxiety. So let's make sure that you get something really good out of this. Once they tell you what that is, you have to make a mental note because you're going to make sure you do this. And you have several different inductions you can use. One is the finger technique where you have them focus in here and bring resist bringing their fingers together, and eventually their fingers do come together, and you say sleep. So, but the one I'm going to describe here is I like particularly. First, you say, well, I'm going to take your right hand. So with your left hand, you grab their right hand and you just hold it limply. And you just sort of move it back and forth like this to get their hand relaxed. And you start talking about how it's important to experience a sense of relaxation. I usually also would take my left hand and put it on their right shoulder. Once, again, we're making eye contact, I say, if they're standing, you have to let them know that your legs are going to stand firm. Even in this state of hypnosis, you will not fall over. If you've never done this, you may have experienced what I did once, which I had to catch someone as their knees buckled. So let them know that their legs are going to be standing firmly beneath them and keeping them supported. And with your hand on their shoulder, that will sort of also help. With that, you'll mention how already they're responding to hypnosis by focusing very intently on my voice. You'll notice that your hands are relaxing, and that is in fact an indirect suggestion that their hands relax, that their shoulders are relaxed. And you tell them to start by taking a very slow, deep breath. So as you watch them inhale, their head will go up, and then have them relax, exhaling and getting more relaxed. Now their eyes are still open. Take another slow, deep breath. Inhale very deeply and exhale and relax even further. While you're doing this, you're moving their hand back and forth. And then with another slow, deep breath and relax even further. Now, this is the one I like to do, which is I have them look at my finger. So I'll take my hand off their shoulder, point it in front of them, and I say, look at the very tip of my finger and focus on it totally, and have your eyes move now to the right. And if they do it, you're in training them. You say, very good. Have it move to the left. Very good. Have them move downward now. And then I have them focus on their hand as I move it up until they're looking upward very high. And I say, now close your eyes as your eyes look upward. Take another slow, deep breath with your eyes looking upward. And I do a rapid induction. I take their hand that I've been shaking and I drop it and I say, sleep. And when they do that on the exhale, their head will lower and they'll start to feel that deep experience of going internally, going into hypnosis. And so I have my hand now on their left shoulder and I'm slightly gently rocking them. And I just keep saying, go deeper and deeper, feeling better and better. And there are lots of different things you can say. You can say the deeper you go, the better you feel. And the better you feel, the deeper you go. Another thing that's good to say is every breath, every sound, every feeling, every word is sending you deeper and deeper, allowing you to focus even more completely on my voice. Focus on my voice and the only sound deeper and deeper. The next step is you do a counting. And counting does absolutely nothing to hypnosis, but everyone is familiar with seeing a hypnotist counting, from 5 down to 0 or 10 down to 0. Each count going deeper, 5, 4, deeper still, 3, 2, 1, and then 0 all the way. And then you congratulate them. You say, you're doing perfectly, absolutely perfectly. They're now in a state of hypnosis. And from here, this is where you give them the gift. The technique is referred to as the organ transplant metaphor that's in the book by Harmond on hypnotic suggestions. And you say, just like your mind, your body would reject things that are foreign, like it would reject an organ that was transplanted, so it is your mind can reject things that no longer matter to you. Right now, you'll remember this incredible feeling every day. And now we're going to create for you a feeling, an emotion, a response. And this is where you give them that gift. If they say, I want to feel more confident, if they say, I want to feel comfortable, speaking to a group of people, you just tell them, from this point on, you feel a sense of confidence. When you are with a group of people, your mind is open and aware and feeling this incredible sense of strength. You can do this with anything they ask, a sense of confidence. You can tell them that you're speaking to the deepest part of their mind. And as you speak to the deepest part of their mind, everything that you say that they want becomes true. So, for example, from this point on, sweets, chocolates, they're not important. They don't even matter. You can now, from this point forward, look at a chocolate or an entire full candy bowl and feel absolutely nothing. And again, I'm holding their shoulder. You feel good. And as you rock their shoulder and sort of put them in that state of imbalance, it forces their mind, because it's physically disoriented, it forces their mind to go further and further. And again, all of this takes only just about 5 minutes. And then you can remind them, In a moment, I'm going to count from 1 to 5. And at the count of 5, your eyes will open, wide awake. You'll feel this incredible, wonderful experience. And everything that you wanted from this will become true. And you count them up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Eyes open, wide awake. Slap your hands, feeling great. Now they're still in hypnosis, so it's always important to just keep giving them hypnotic suggestions. Feel great, feel amazing, feel absolutely wonderful. And of course, you're nodding your head and raising your eyebrows. You feel great, don't you? Feels really good. And again, all of this takes only about 5 minutes. And it's amazing sort of response. And if there's other people around, it simply validates how good they are at being hypnotized. And so they're doing it and getting this sort of sense of confidence around other people. The other thing you can do as in the hypnotic suggestion part is take all fears and all negativity and just let them now float off far away, far, far in the distance. They don't matter. They're not important. And you don't even have to think about them anymore. Gone. And again, you can bring them back. So I have my own technique. This one works incredibly well. And it only takes 5 minutes. So for anyone who wants any sort of guidance or support in doing this, I encourage you, please do it. Let this become your new favorite drug. Because once you've done it once and you've got a good response, you'll just start to want to see that more and more and more. So first of all, if you have questions, you can raise your hand or unmute yourself. You can share your experience of this. Anyone have any sort of response? Alex, you always have something great to share. You've done this before, I'm sure. You're not muted yet. You're unmuted. So Alex.
And there we go. Yeah. Well, there was for me the main barrier, as it were, the main shall we say, the main catalyst when I'm talking to someone who's not experienced this hypnosis well, at least not even for the first time. It's the ones that have already been through the process. For example, someone who's come back from a stage hypnotist and they've already experienced a trance state. So all I need to do is remind their mind of what it felt like and then put them back in that state again, which their unconscious mind will do because the unconscious mind is the real driver behind the full person's mind. But there was one who was actively resisting, and you'll always get someone who'll say something like, "Oh no, that's not for me. I don't want to lose control." And for me, I ask something very simple. I ask them, and where does that thought come from about losing control? Where does that thought come from about it being demonic or something? Just what part of your mind is there that says that this is something bad, something wicked or whatever?
Right.
And then I get them to focus on that part of their mind. And then at that point, it's like asking them to look at negative thoughts surrounding that part and just sort of imagining the negativity, letting go and feeling them drifting off into the distance, and then doing that part of the script that you described there. But it's not like it's like a pattern that I use, and I'd ask something like, "And in how many ways do you see negativity and fear surrounding that part of you that you can really let go of now, because you can see more clearly once you have let go of that which is clouding your mind, clouding your judgment, your senses, that sort of stuff." So it's encouraging them to look into themselves. And then when their perceptions are turned inward and they're focusing on that, it's like, who was it that said, where attention goes, energy flows?
Yeah.
It's, it's like if somebody is trying to focus on the pain, for example, I just cut my finger on some paper or something and it hurts like bilio. And then you focus your attention, your whole attention on that thing, and it hurts worse and worse and worse. But in this case, it's like telling this person effectively to think of trance, to think of what it's like to let go, let those thoughts settle, clear their mind so that they can see more clearly. And then that way you just blow the negativity away. And with that, the conscious filter also goes away. So you can talk
Yeah.
directly to the conscious mind. So,
Yeah. Excellent. A couple of ways I have occasionally just mentioned I do hypnosis, and people say, well, I don't believe in hypnosis. Now, I can usually overcome that by explaining its benefits that, like I say, 70% of MMA fighters have a hypnotist that keeps them focused and keeps them in the game and keeps them right at the level of their skill set. And hypnotists have it. There have been thousands of papers, scientifically reviewed papers about hypnosis. So when you say, I don't believe in hypnosis, what I'm sensing is what you're saying is you're afraid of it. Not that it isn't real, but you're afraid of it. And there you go into the myths. The phrase I always use is, I am only a tour guide during this process. You have a responsibility just to follow instructions. You do all the heavy lifting. If there's a point in here you don't want to follow any of my instructions, don't follow it. So that's one way of dealing with that. And again, if they've had hypnosis before, I always ask, I could just start by saying, remember that feeling when you were like deep into it? And just notice now, as you remember that feeling, notice how much of that feeling is already here. And now just focus in on it. Then you can just do sleep, and it just revivifies the whole hypnosis process. All right, Tyrone has a question. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Okay, appreciate it. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, very good.
I'm just curious as to what you just showed us as far as doing a impromptu hypnosis. Do you believe or how does it compare to the street hypnosis that people see on YouTube when they, put them under in 30 seconds? I mean, is that real or how does that compare?
Oh, I'm sorry, I muted myself. It's essentially the same thing. You're doing, again, you can do this in a coffee shop. I used to do it in very crowded bars with someone who would say, hey, David's a hypnotist, come over here. But it's essentially the same thing. I always have the best thing you can do in a hypnosis is make someone feel really good. So always ask what they want from a hypnosis process, and that always gives them a good benefit. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I was just
Yeah.
curious because I mean I've seen videos here and there where looks like they put them in hypnosis in 15 seconds or 20
Oh yeah.
seconds, and I was
Well,
always curious as to is that real or not.
yes, it's absolutely real. Keep in mind the hypnotist is setting the frame of it, which is I'm the hypnotist, and I can put people in hypnosis. As soon as someone walks into that frame, they're agreeing to the setting. They're agreeing to it. And they may want to resist it, but as long as they're participating in it, they've agreed to it, and it's completely real. In fact, something I tell people to do if you're new to hypnosis, just go to YouTube, type in street hypnosis, and see what these people do and duplicate it. And I did that, and I thought, why am I making this so hard on myself? I just do what this person does. One of the people that I saw he would introduce himself as a hypnotist. Would you like to go in hypnosis? And he would say these words. He would say, in a moment, I'll say the word sleep, and you will go into not the regular sleep, but a deep hypnotic sleep where you will hear every word I say and easily be able to follow my instructions. And that sets up everything. And he would do a really quick induction, which is usually like a rapid induction or a shock induction. And they would slump over. I think one of them, I actually saw him have to catch the person, and I've done this. I had to grab a 200-pound guy under his arm and then by his belt so he didn't slam his knees into the ground. And I say, okay, stand up straight, stand up straight. But yeah, it's absolutely real. It's the same thing.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
Oh, and Alex says Anthony Jacquin has some really good demonstrations of street hypnosis. But I've seen him, I've seen a bunch of others, and they're all really, really good. So anyone who's wanting to do this, find somebody to practice it on. In fact, if you want to practice it on a mannequin or a teddy bear, or you want to just stare in the mirror and hallucinate a hypnosis subject, just do it. And be absolutely fearless. Just imagine you have done this 100 times. I told you once about how I created this character, Dantalion Jones. Dantalion Jones could do so much more than I could. And so I would just walk into this character and do it just like he would. Okay, Alex. Or I'm sorry, not Alex. Graham, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I've managed to find a garage to pull into, as you'd say in America, a filling station, so I don't have an accident. The thought occurred to us is, and it's about with the idea, like, giving them a little hypnotic gift. And as you said, like, helping with confidence or get rid of negative stuff. How much actual therapy work or work on that issue they're having trouble with would you do with them? Because obviously you don't want to start hypnotizing other people out of giving you money for your hour-long sessions, because you do, after all, have to put a bread on the table and a roof over the head. So I'm just wondering, is there some sort of cut-off point where you think that's going to be more a longer session that you need help with, and give them something to be getting on with until you can get an appointment made?
Yeah, that's a personal decision. I've known some hypnotists who say, "Oh, you want to quit smoking? You got to pay me this amount of money, and you have to book it, and we'll set it up." Personally, I don't care. I want to have someone have a really dramatic experience, and I could, depending on what they ask and sort of how I perceive them, I'll just make smoking, for example, unimportant. It doesn't matter. You feel this incredible strength inside of you. Sometimes I'll tell them smoking from this point on just sounds disgusting. The important part is that you get them feeling good when this is all over. And you can always say afterwards, if you need further support here, call me and we'll set up some time. But the difference between, someone once said, the difference between a hypnotist and a hypnotherapist is a hypnotherapist is going to schedule an appointment and a hypnotist is going to solve your problem. So personally, I just want them to have the best result I can in the shortest amount of time. All right, good.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Thank you, Graham. Anybody else?
Yeah, I've got a question. This is about going a little farther into, say, working with Christians. As I mentioned in our conversation before, I'm not really doing much hypnosis now. I don't have a shingle hung out.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm doing body work, and I was working with a woman who'd been in chronic pain for 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
And when somebody's been in chronic pain for that long, you have to work with the mind as well as the body. And I suggested to her that with hypnosis, she could learn to turn down the signal of pain in her brain. She said, "Oh, I would never do hypnosis. I'm a Christian."
Okay.
And I did not want to alienate her, so I just didn't take that any farther.
Okay.
So how do you handle a situation like that?
My mentor, Jeff Stevens, was a devout Christian. He actually paused his hypnosis practice to get himself right as a hypnotist with Christianity. And he actually read the Bible and he got all of the necessary scripture that said that this is appropriate. So that's one way of doing it. You could do this with Chat GPT, but verify the scriptures beforehand because you can't always rely on what it says. The second thing is God gave you, you could just tell them, I completely understand. People think hypnosis is foreign and alien and satanic. But God gave you a mind, and it didn't give you necessarily an instruction manual to it. Would you want to use that mind to get right with yourself, with God, with family? That's all we're doing with hypnosis. So you would just frame it. And keep in mind for someone like that, and they have been indoctrinated so that anything hypnosis, psychology, cognitive therapeutic stuff is, if it's not Christ oriented, it's not appropriate for them. You may be going up with a great deal of indoctrination. So your best bet is be super compassionate with them, give them as much information as possible, and do your best to reframe it. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. Thank you. I
Yeah.
really had no idea how to proceed in a way that would not be alienating.
Yeah. Yeah. If you know ahead of time that this person is a Christian, I would just frame it as, God gave you a mind to work with, but you didn't necessarily come with an instruction manual, and your mind can do incredible things. You don't have to say hypnosis either. That's like the trigger word. Okay, Graham.
Yeah, if I can just come in on that with that question about how to do hypnosis with Christians, being a Christian myself and regular churchgoer, one thing that I have noticed is that when you're having a session of prayer, it is actually near enough undistinguishable from being in a hypnotic state because you have to like close your eyes, like steady yourself down, go into yourself, and all that sort of thing. And that's when you start making supplications of your prayer and things like that. So if you do have someone as a Christian, you just say, well, it is similar to going into a state of prayer, except you're just going to direct some of the questions. So saying, instead of asking the God Almighty for help, you ask him for the strength to overcome this difficulty while you're in that prayerful state. And
Yeah,
that does actually have pretty much about the same sort of impact.
Equally, you could say that I want you to ask if everything I say to you in this state, if Christ would agree to it. And that way you create this filter. Would Christ agree that you need to in your mind to make this change? And that could frame it as well.
Yeah.
Thank you, Graham. Tyrone.
Yeah, I just wanted to hop in on that. I would probably, if someone said that to me, I would want to know a little bit more about that belief before I try to answer it. So I might ask them, how exactly does Christianity stop you from enjoying the benefits of hypnosis?
Right. Yeah, it's a good point. Very, very devout, sort of highly indoctrinated people will respond by saying, well, if it's not Christ oriented, it's of the devil. That's one response you might get. So I'd be prepared for that. All right. Okay. Any last comments or requests? I want anyone who listens to this to read it, and I will do this as a YouTube file, so it will be there for you. And if any of you have any questions, any concerns or comments, you're welcome to reach out to me. I think I mentioned this pretty consistently, my personal operations manual for doing hypnosis as a professional and as a business is available for those who ask. I do request that you arrange to talk with me in order to get this, and I will give it to you. All right.
Oh, one last thing, David. Before I just thought it just occurred to us, because you was going through that process of doing the 5-minute rapid induction sort of thing. When you do the YouTube video, would you be better off putting a little warning saying there may be some hypnotic content, so don't go driving a car before listening to this, because there'll be someone who'll be listening to it and will actually be hypnotized by it.
It's entirely possible. I'm glad you reminded me of that, because I've not done that in my hypnosis videos, so I appreciate that. Yeah, it's good advice. People are pretty. I think that advice is just recognize if you're listening to this in a vehicle, be aware, drive safely. That's your first priority, is your own health and safety, and then listen to it, and then they can sort of measure it. I've listened to hypnosis videos in the car, and my first priority is driving, and then I just sort of measure the effect it has on me while I'm driving, and it's generally pretty good. All right, thank you, Graham.
Okay, I'm going to have to mute now because I'm going to hit the road again. So everybody have a great weekend, and thanks for putting on such a great session, David.
Drive safely, Graham. All right. Well, you have spent some time here, and I deeply appreciate it. And because you spent your time here, you obviously didn't spend it somewhere else. So that was a sacrifice. And I deeply appreciate that sacrifice. We'll be back again next week. Anyone who has a particular topic to talk about, please send it my way. It will be a good, fertile field of discussion at some point. So guys, thank you so much. Tyrone, Alex, Graham, Anne, thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Take care.